the building blocks for our green energy future. Corporations are calling it the next great leap for humanity, a way to power our electric cars. They warn that this deep-sea gold rush could trigger an irreversible ecological collapse, destroying ancient, undiscovered ecosystems before we even understand them. The global demand for critical minerals is skyrocketing. Our transition away from fossil fuels depends on batteries, and batteries depend on metals like cobalt and nickel. The DRC, for example, supplies most of the world's cobalt, but mining there is linked to hazardous conditions and human rights abuses. So, the industry is turning its gaze downward, to the abyssal plains of the Clarion-Clipperton Zone, a vast stretch of the Pacific Ocean floor between Hawaii and Mexico. This region alone is estimated to hold more nickel, cobalt, and manganese than all land-based reserves combined. These metals aren't buried deep in rock. They're sitting right on the seafloor in the form of polymetallic nodules, potato-sized lumps that have grown over millions of years. To the mining companies, it looks like an easy harvest. Just scoop them up. The question is, at what cost? The main players in this new frontier are a handful of pioneering companies, backed by nations eager to secure their piece of the pie. Companies like the Metals Company, a Canadian firm, are leading the charge. They've developed massive robotic collectors, essentially underwater vacuums, the size of combined harvesters, designed to crawl along the seabed, sucking up nodules. These machines then pump a slurry of nodules, sediment, and water up a 4-mile-long pipe to a surface vessel. On board, the nodules are separated, and the leftover wastewater and sediment are discharged back into the ocean. It sounds futuristic, almost like science fiction. And the body tasked with regulating all of this is just as unique, the International Seabed Authority, or ESA. Created by the UN, the ESA is supposed to manage the mineral resources of the deep seabed for the benefit of all humankind. It has the dual, and some say conflicting, mandate of both promoting the development of these resources and ensuring the protection of the marine environment. For years, the ESA has been slowly developing a mining code, the set of rules that would govern commercial extraction. But it's a monumental task. How do you write regulations for an industry that doesn't exist yet in an environment we barely understand? The pressure is mounting. The tiny island nation of Nauru, a sponsoring state for the Metals Company, triggered a legal provision that forces the ESA to finalize these regulations, effectively setting a deadline. That deadline has now passed, opening the door for companies to apply for exploitation licenses even without a complete set of globally agreed-upon rules. We are now in a regulatory gray area, hurtling towards an industrial revolution in the last pristine wilderness on Earth. And this is where the story takes a dark turn. The deep ocean isn't an empty void. It's a fragile, complex, and ancient world teeming with life, much of which is found nowhere else on the planet. These are ecosystems that have evolved over millions of years in total darkness, under immense pressure and with very little disturbance. The polymetallic nodules themselves are not just rocks. They are microhabitats, providing a hard surface for corals, sponges, and countless other organisms to attach to in an otherwise muddy abyss. A recent study found that nearly all species found living on these nodules were new to science. Mining would scrape them away entirely. These ecosystems, once destroyed, may never recover in human timescales or even geological ones. The robotic collectors won't just remove the nodules. They will churn up massive plumes of sediment, creating underwater dust storms that can travel for hundreds of miles. This sediment can smother marine life far from the actual mining site, clogging the gills of fish and burying filter-feeding organisms that form the base of the deep-sea food web. Then there's the noise and light pollution. In a world of perpetual darkness and silence, the constant roar and glare of machinery could have devastating impacts on creatures that communicate and navigate using sound and bioluminescence. Finally, there's the discharge from the surface vessel. Releasing cold, sediment-laden water into the upper layers of the ocean could disrupt the delicate balance of the pelagic zone, impacting everything from plankton to tuna and whales. Scientists are racing to understand these risks, but they are working against the clock. We know more about the surface of Mars than we do about our own planet's seafloor. We are essentially proposing to run a massive, uncontrolled experiment in the largest and least understood biome on Earth. The consequences of getting it wrong are quite literally unfathomable. What happens next could decide the fate of our oceans. As of now, the International Seabed Authority has not issued any commercial mining licenses, but the pressure is immense. The regulatory framework is incomplete, and a significant block of countries, including France, Germany, Spain, and Chile, are now calling for a moratorium or a precautionary pause on deep-sea mining. They argue that we cannot proceed until the science is clear and robust environmental protections are in place. But other nations, particularly developing states who see this as a potential economic windfall, are eager to move forward. The ESA is caught in the middle. Will it prioritize caution and conservation, or will it bow to commercial and political pressure? The fear is that we are on the verge of a regulatory collapse, where the first license is granted without adequate safeguards, setting a precedent that opens the floodgates. We are standing at a crossroads. The minerals on the seabed are valuable, and the demand for a clean energy transition is real. But is it worth sacrificing the deep ocean, the cradle of life on Earth, for a solution that might create a new and perhaps greater environmental catastrophe? The warnings from scientists are clear, but for now they remain unanswered, echoing in the vast silent dark. This is a complex issue with huge implications for our planet's future. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below.